Godzilla is now in New York City.
Monster 01 and 02, commence the attack.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to our night of release recording of our thoughts on Godzilla vs. Kong, the rematch 60 years in the making. How are y'all feeling?
Hey.
Yeah.
Y'all know I was excited about this movie, even though I tried my best not to be.
Yeah. You didn't hide it very well.
Shut up, Andrew.
You know what? I gotta say, I was pretty excited to see this.
Yeah.
I mean, when's the last good blockbuster we had?
Last
year?
No, not last year. 2019?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's been a while.
It's been a little bit.
We didn't even see this one at the theaters. Yet.
Yet.
This weekend.
We watched it on HBO Max tonight so we could record this and get this review out to you guys ASAP.
Because I know you guys are dying to know what we thought about it.
I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, I think
all five of you.
I think we'll do a little bit of production. I don't think there's anything spoilery in the production trivia, is there? I don't think so. And then we'll do box office, and then we'll do a bit of spoiler-free. Should you watch it? Should you not? And
then we can come back
the rest of it.
Yeah, then we'll come back right off that cast and crew plot summary, and we'll talk about it.
Yeah, but some quick production trivia. This is the 36th feature film to feature Godzilla. Ooh. This is the 9th live-action Kong film. Quick side story. When I was putting together our schedule, I had forgotten that there are 3 feature-length animated Kong movies.
We're not watching those.
We're not going to watch them. I did a little bit of research. One of them is like it was produced by Warner Brothers. It was a made-for-TV animated musical.
No,
I was
thanks.
like, don't need it. And then the other 2 are feature film spin-offs of some Kong animated TV show. And I was like, no. So even though I am a completionist at heart, I was like, don't need it.
And neither do you. Don't watch that.
So, yeah. Anyway, so 9th live-action King Kong movie. So, I mean, as you guys know, this release date has moved around a lot. It was originally scheduled to be released on May 29th of 2020. And then, a little something happened called COVID. Filming began on November 12th of 2018 and wrapped in April of 2019. So almost 2 years ago, this was finished filming. Tom Holkenborg, otherwise known as Junkie XL, admitted to recreationally writing music for Godzilla before he was hired on to do this film. He also requested and got a bass drum 8 feet in diameter to use in recording the score.
It's a big drum.
Boom, boom, boom. Netflix allegedly offered somewhere between $200 and $250 million to put the film on their streaming service, but Warner Media, who is the parent company to Warner Brothers, blocked the deal because they wanted to save it for HBO Max. And that led to some threatening legal action from Legendary, who basically said, we're going to sue you unless, Warner Media matches Netflix's offer because we want our money back. And I guess it all worked out. I don't think any lawsuits were ever officially filed. This is the shortest film in the MonsterVerse.
At 1 hour and 53 minutes long.
That is right. And it is the first Godzilla film to have verses in either the English or Japanese title since Megaguirus, and the first to have it in the Japanese title since Godzilla vs. Destroya. So yeah, it's hard to believe there's...
Hasn't been a versus in a while.
A long time.
Since the 90s.
Just going back to Megaguirus for the English title, that was 2001, right? So that would have been 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Destroya was what,
95?
So
26 years ago?
6 years ago.
It's a long time.
So that's a hot minute.
Yeah.
Dylan,
Anyway.
you want to tell them about the box office?
Yeah, I sure can. So this movie is being released simultaneously in theaters and on HBO Max same day. actually today. March 31st of 2021. It has a estimated production budget of somewhere between $160 and $200 million. I would assume, given all the pushbacks and marketing, probably push that closer to 400.
$500 million.
$500 million, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
This has had an opening of $123.1 million in 38 markets internationally, of which China accounted for $69.2 million. For comparison, King of the Monsters opened to about $130 million internationally in over 70 markets. And this film is projected to bring in somewhere between $20 and $30 million domestically between Wednesday and Sunday, which will be the largest opening post-pandemic.
That's right. Is this film the film that saves the theater industry?
Warner Brothers seems to think so.
They do seem to think so. I think we'll talk a little bit more about at the end what we think of the future of the MonsterVerse is. But for now, let's do some quick spoiler-free thoughts. And should you watch it? Should you not? Andrew, would you like to start?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What?
It's a good movie.
Mm-hmm.
You should watch it.
You should watch it. Dylan, what do you think?
I definitely think people should check it out. I would, if you are comfortable with it, I would recommend seeing it on as big a screen as possible.
Yeah.
It warrants it.
Yeah, I agree. We'll obviously dive deep into our thoughts, but I think it's, especially if you've enjoyed the MonsterVerse at all up to this point, I think it's definitely worth a viewing. I agree with you. I mean, obviously, we watched it on a 65-inch TV on HBO Max. I am definitely excited to go back and see it. I'm really excited to see
this on as big a screen as possible. I don't think we're going to be making the trek to Tulsa this time around to see
IMAX.
it. But
not worth that much. But we'll definitely go see it at our local AMC. And it's a fun time. And it's
fun.
It's good that it's under 2 hours. It doesn't overstay its welcome. I definitely recommend you go see it.
Absolutely.
If you're a fan of Godzilla or Kong, or probably both.
Or big blockbusters.
Blockbusters.
Anyway, cast and crew.
Well, we're gonna stop here and we're gonna play the trailer, and then we'll come back and we'll read off the cast and crew, read off the plot summary, and
the plot essay.
I just tried to get in all the major details, and then we'll talk about our thoughts on Godzilla versus Kong. See you in a bit.
This is our only chance. We have to take it.
We need Kong. The world needs him. To stop what's coming. And this child. She's the only one he'll communicate with.
I knew that they had a bond. She had nowhere to go, so I made a promise to protect her. And I think that in some way, Kong did the same. It's Godzilla.
These are dangerous times.
Godzilla's out there and he's hurting people and we don't know why.
There's something provoking him that we're not seeing here.
I'm of the same opinion.
The myths are real. There was a war. And they're the last ones standing.
I keep reaching for greatness because I'm built from it.
Who bows to who?
Nobody gonna stop for me. Here we go.
Kong bows to no one.
Here we go.
All right, we're back. This film is directed by Adam Wingard, written by Eric Pearson and Max Bornstein and a lot of other people. Music by Tom Holkenborg, and starring a lot of people. Alexander Skarsgård, Millie Bobby Brown, Rebecca Hall, Brian Tyree Henry, Shun Oguri, Isa Gonzalez, Julian Dennison, Kyle Chandler, Demian Bashir, and Kaylee Hoddle.
Sure.
And Godzilla and Kong, the only two that matter.
And we'll talk about the rest. Also, you forgot to mention the writing credit for Michael Dougherty.
Oh, yeah.
Who did direct the last film.
There was like 6 people credited with writing this thing. So.
Anyway, this essay here.
Mm-hmm.
When a large corporation named Apex... Oh, obviously spoilers.
Spoilers. Oh, yes. If you haven't gathered it by now, we're about to spoil the crap out of this movie.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. When a large corporation named Apex Industries recruits Nathan Lynn to help them find an ancient power source in the Hollow Earth, Nathan visits Eileen Andrews and her adopted daughter Gia and asks them to help him convince Kong to lead them to their destination. Meanwhile, Madison Russell and her friend Josh team up with conspiracy theorist Bernie Hayes to determine the reason Godzilla is attacking unprovoked. Bernie has been working as an employee at Apex and is convinced that whatever is provoking Godzilla is being put together in Hong Kong. While they work their way to China, Kong is being transported across the sea to Antarctica, where there is an entrance to the Hollow Earth. Along the way, the fleet is attacked by Godzilla, and although Godzilla leaves after they cut their engines, the fleet is in tatters and Kong is carried the rest of the way via air. Once in Antarctica, Kong and his human companions journey down into the Earth, where they find the power source Apex was looking for, along with a giant axe that Kong takes as a weapon. Godzilla, who is now laying waste to Hong Kong, senses the underground power surge and uses his atomic breath to destroy the cavern Kong and the humans are gathered in. Nathan, Irene, and Gia escape while the Apex employees are killed, but not before sending the data about the power source to their headquarters. Apex uses the data to power Mechagodzilla, which is being controlled by Ren Serizawa via the power of one of Ghidorah's skulls. But the power surge fries Serizawa, and Mechagodzilla is left to think on its own. Godzilla and Kong fight out their differences in the streets of Hong Kong, and Godzilla comes out victorious. But when Mechagodzilla emerges from the Apex base, the robot violently beats down on the giant lizard. Kong, after being revived by Nathan, assists Godzilla, and together they are able to defeat the evil Mecha. In the final scenes, Godzilla returns to the sea, and Kong is placed in a new Monarch base set up in Hollow Earth as credits roll.
That's right, and there it is, folks.
That is the essential basis of this film.
That is Godzilla versus Kong. Yeah. So, when it starts, we start on somewhere on Skull Island.
As the big card says.
Card says. Title card, the opening.
I feel like we were watching Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah. And, Kong, we quickly establish that he has this relationship with this little girl, Gia. She signs to him, and I guess we're to assume that he understands, and
spoiler alert, he does.
Spoiler alert, he can sign himself. So
yeah.
But we learn that he is in some kind of controlled environment because he grabs a tree
and hurls it.
Yep, and it breaks the little projector dome thing.
Hunger Games did it first.
Yes.
I'm kidding. But he is in some sort of containment device room thingy, whatchamacallit.
And I guess, we learned through some drop lines later that there's this perpetual storm over Skull Island for reasons.
For some reason.
Yeah, and so they keep him, in this nice little warm environment. And, I think this opening scene does a good job of, one, kind of establishing the tone, and two, kind of humanizing Kong, because he gets up, he yawns, he, scratches his butt, and he kind of, waddles over to...
Kong is very much a humanized giant monster in this film. He has almost human characteristics.
I'll go ahead and say he's the best character in the movie.
He's very intriguing.
He emotes the most.
Definitely.
he has the most screen time.
Yeah.
Definitely. He's the best character in this movie. And I think they do a good job of humanizing him and making us sympathize with him and
absolutely
and want to be on his side, because he is the protagonist of the movie.
I would definitely agree with that. Even though the title is Godzilla vs. Kong, I'd much more say that this is a King Kong film than a Godzilla film.
Yeah, when I went back and listened to our original review of King Kong vs. Godzilla, and I think we kind of talked about, was that a King Kong movie with Godzilla in it, or vice versa? And I think you kind of said you thought it was a King Kong movie with Godzilla in it, but I said that I thought they did a really good job of splitting the time pretty evenly. I didn't feel like either one monster had more of the spotlight in that original movie, but in this movie, it definitely feels like a King Kong movie with Godzilla in it, which is odd considering what happens at the end that we'll talk about, or throughout this movie really. But then we cut to the title card, and
and then we got all kinds of. Well, first of all, we have all of the classic opening credits of like news articles of things that are going on in the world or whatever, harkening back to events of previous films. And then we get the big title card.
I love the design of this title card.
It feels like an older Godzilla movie.
Especially like those Heisei era Godzilla title
that would
cards.
Fly in big, bold CGI letters.
Yeah, it feels like a throwback.
Godzilla versus Kong.
Yeah. I love the title cards.
Big, bright, colorful letters.
Yes.
And then the next thing we have is we are introduced to Brian Tyree Henry's character.
And he runs a podcast.
He is a conspiracy theorist podcast. He's like
about the Titans.
Yeah, he's about like what's his name? Alex Smith? Is that Alex Smith? That doesn't seem right.
I don't know.
Anyway, that crazy right-wing conspiracy theorist guy that's got that podcast, he's like that version, but about Titans. And he works at Apex Industries. He's deep undercover, I guess. And covert. And this is basically our introduction scene with Godzilla, because Godzilla knows something is fishy with his Apex Industries in Pensacola, Florida.
So he shows up and attacks.
He shows up, and I'm going to say this scene goes a long way to getting me to buy into this movie, because the one thing that I really, love about old Godzilla movies that I feel like the MonsterVerse has been kind of short supply of is
Godzilla
good
being
old
a bad
fashioned. Well, that, but more to the point, good old fashioned city destruction. I mean, we get a little bit of it in Godzilla King of the Monsters, and
we get a little bit of it in the first one,
but I feel like it's very muted compared to some old show era Godzilla movies.
Like the first one, especially like the 2014 Godzilla, it's much more hidden in the shadows.
Yeah,
and
even in Godzilla King of the Monsters, it's
kind of like an all-out affair. Like everyone's destroying the city.
Yeah, but I don't feel like they really focus on like buildings being smashed.
No, he's not. And King of the Monsters, it's not like Godzilla is there to rampage and attack.
Yeah,
it's kind of more collateral damage.
Collateral damage. Yeah, but
he literally shows up and is pissed and
he is
wrecks it.
Using his atomic breath. He is.
I mean, he's charged up before he even comes out the water.
Yeah, he is blowing stuff up. He is swatting things out of the sky. He is just wrecking buildings, and I love it. I mean, it's at nighttime, but I love the look of it. I just love the feeling. And yeah, like you said, Godzilla being the bad guy. It's been a while since we've had that. I mean, I guess Shin Godzilla kind of, but it's just it's a different take in the MonsterVerse for Godzilla, and I enjoy the scene quite a bit. But Brian Tyree Henry does see some kind of weird mechanical device down in the basement of Apex Industries, and it's not long after this that I guess the next scene we're introduced again to Madison Russell, and her and Kyle Chandler are arguing over why Godzilla is attacking, and
he is upset that she listens to this podcast.
Yeah. And she recruits her friend Josh, and
played by Julian Dennison.
Yep, and they load up in his brother's van, I guess,
and take off.
And they go to find Brian Tyree Henry. Meanwhile, we're introduced to Alexander Skarsgård.
Yep.
And he is an ex-Monarch employee, and
an author.
Yeah, so Damien Bashir, who plays
the head of Apex.
Yeah, which we just talked about him on our other podcast in The Nun. He was the preacher in that. He recruits him to basically, they think that, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and say this. The human plot in this movie is bonkers. I mean, absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, it is pretty much, it's pretty much paper thin too, like everyone's motivations for why they're here.
Yeah, I mean, everyone has like their one character trait. Why is what we're running with. They need, I'll do my best to explain it. There's a power source in the Hollow Earth that
that can help power some sort of something that is undisclosed at this moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
To power something that can help them save the Earth from the Titans, essentially.
So they're basically the reverse of Emma Russell in the last movie. She wanted the Titans to all come alive and wipe out humanity or whatever.
Because humanity's basically, responsible for Earth being destroyed.
So the bad guys in this movie are, the evil corporation type that they want to restore humans as the apex predators, and so they're going to do the thing that we're going to talk about later. And anyway, so they need him to go to the Hollow Earth.
And apparently he wrote some sort of book on it, so he's the
expert,
the leading expert in the Hollow Earth now.
Yeah, and I mean, this movie is about a giant lizard fighting a giant ape and then fighting a giant robot later. So I mean, logic be damned. But
logic went out the window. Long time ago.
He goes to Skull Island, and he talks to
an old colleague, quote unquote.
Was that a pic? I couldn't quite tell on our TV. Was those pictures she had in her office of him and her, or was that of her and somebody else?
It looked like her and the little girl.
I thought there was a picture of her and a guy.
I don't know. I couldn't tell.
Okay, well, I have to rewatch it and see.
I don't know. He kisses her on the cheek later, and it seems kind of awkward. Like maybe they might have possibly been together at some point in time.
Maybe,
but it's never
expanded
upon or talked about. So let's say no. They just happen to know each other.
Okay, they were old coworkers. He convinces her that she needs. I mean, it's a real quick conversation and real quick convincing. He's like, "We need to take Kong to Antarctica to."
And she's like, "No."
She's like, "No."
He's like, "But we have to."
Godzilla will come for him as soon as he leaves. He can't stay here forever. Okay,
you're right.
And my.
Okay, but I'm in charge.
Yeah, my thing is like this. She has complete authority from Monarch to just get up and take Kong and move him whenever she wants. I would think that would be stuck in committee meetings.
Who runs
for months
Monarch
on end.
now?
I don't know who runs Monarch. I mean, it's a division of the government, is it not? So I mean, I guess some Senate committee oversees it. I don't know.
I mean, Charles Dance worked for Monarch, didn't he?
No,
he was an independent.
He was an eco-terrorist.
Yeah,
good. Totally right.
Anyway,
they load him up on a cargo ship. I miss I wanted to see the scene with him trying to trank Kong, but no. The next thing we see, he's knocked out on a cargo ship being transported across the sea. And then I think meanwhile, Madison and they meet up with Brian Tyree Henry and
they are discussing things, and they have come up with a plan that they're going to break into Apex to go find this thing that Brian Tyree Henry allegedly saw.
Yeah, and so they break in and
spoiler alert, it's not there.
Yeah, it's not there, and somehow they stumble into a little
elevator,
underground tram rail thing that shoots them to Hong Kong.
Takes them to level 33.
You get it? I think in 1933 is when Kong came out. I told Dylan, I was like, it'd be really clever considering what's going to come out of this later if they would have been level 74 because but or maybe that was stretching believability too much to think that something would go 74 floors underground.
But anyway,
cut back. And about 40 minutes into this movie is when we have our first clash of the Titans. Round one of 3. And,
3 and then bonus round.
And bonus round.
Bonus round.
And I'll just go ahead and kind of spoil the Godzilla Kong aspect of this movie. Godzilla pretty much kicks Kong's ass this whole movie.
Pretty much.
Which... Again, I think that's the right choice because...
That's the right choice. It logically makes the most sense if you see Godzilla.
If you're talking about logic, I mean, it's the most logical thing in this whole damn movie. Because, I mean, the way... I know, obviously...
the way Kong is presented, he does not seem as big as Godzilla.
He's not as...
Which he's not as big as Godzilla. He's not supposed to be.
Yeah.
But
I mean, even just the way they've set up the characters in the previous 3 entries. I mean, obviously Godzilla's got the atomic breath and... He's big, he's bulky, he's already beat King Ghidorah, who was a 3-headed space dragon. I mean, what's a giant ape compared to that, But and I will say in this movie, they super power up Godzilla's atomic breath. It is.
I mean, in previous films, especially in the Showa era, to me it always seemed like he charged it up, obviously, and then in these Americanized versions, since the 2014 Godzilla, we get the whoop, 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 and then he uses it.
Yeah.
It always seemed to me, in the Showa era films and Heisei and everything, and even in the previous 2 films with Godzilla, that he could charge it up, use it for a brief period of time, and then he would have to wait and recharge.
Yeah.
He kind of just... Fires at will.
Not only that, but, in the previous 2 entries in the MonsterVerse, it was a powerful weapon. It would, push his enemies back. But in this movie, it incinerates everything it touches. Almost instantly.
Well, I mean, he did get nuked in the last movie.
That's true. Maybe that has something to do with it. And he merged with Mothra's life force.
Gave him superpowers.
Man, we'll talk about some of the stuff he does with his heat ray later. But anyway, in this scene, we have our first big fight, and then he attacks Kong on the cargo ship, and they flip the boat over, and they set Kong free, and they wrestle underwater.
They wrestle for a while.
Godzilla's about to drown him, and they
launch some depth charges,
Well,
makes him go off.
I guess before that, I don't think scale is very consistent in this movie.
No.
They get on top of an aircraft carrier. It is not established that this is supposed to be a bigger than normal aircraft carrier. And I just have to say...
They both fit on it.
They both fit on it.
There's no way.
And I was reading, like, Godzilla, like, if you look at his stats in this movie, like his height and everything, he's as big or bigger than any aircraft carrier the United States has in service right now. So... yeah, it looks cool, I guess.
It looks cool. That's what's important.
Yeah.
That's what they're going for here. It's got to look cool.
But yeah, they get underwater, and like I said, they...
Anyways, they launch some depth charges. It scares Godzilla off long enough for King Kong to flip the boat back over and hop back up on top.
And he's obviously beaten.
And so they're like, oh boy, well, we got to flip off the engines.
Because Godzilla's like a T-Rex, I guess. If you stay still, he can't see you.
Would you say who wins round one, Kong or
Godzilla?
I'd say Godzilla.
Godzilla, I think pretty evidently Kong,
because he kind of stalks him, and they kind of like they're like, ooh.
Godzilla's like, and he just kind of swims away all menacingly.
Yeah.
So that's round one. Goes
round one.
Godzilla. Round one.
Godzilla.
And so now they had to carry Kong to Antarctica via air so Godzilla doesn't attack their boats again, which they do. Kind of a throwback to when in the original film where they had to like put King Kong tie him to some hot air balloons and then lead him with some helicopters to Godzilla's location. Kind of a reference to that, I think.
But anyway, so we get to Antarctica.
Mm-hmm.
And
this stretch of the movie, I feel like, is very Kong. This middle part of the movie is very Kong-centric, very little
like
Godzilla.
A King Kong movie.
It's a King Kong movie. And
anyway, the little girl is like, you got to go in there. And he's like, no.
He's like, F you.
And then they're like, well, the Alexander Skarsgård's character is like, well, tell him maybe his family's in there. So she does. She's like, hey, maybe your family's in there.
And he takes
off.
So he's
like, ooh.
So, okay, so, they've talked about the Hollow Earth. I think
they've mentioned it since...
In Skull Island.
Yeah.
And they mentioned it again in
King of the Monsters.
Yeah. And, I always thought it was dumb. And it is dumb. But what I will give this movie is that they just play it up to its full potential, and they make it bat crap crazy and visually very impressive. And so
absolutely.
I'll forgive them for it. They go in. It's like this weird, like, inverted gravity thing.
They like fall down this big tunnel, and then all of a sudden they enter this portal, and then they travel light speed, literally, because it like literally does the same effect from like Star Wars, where they travel light speed for a brief second, and then it becomes 2001 for like 5 seconds, and then they're there.
And they like are falling, but then it flips, and it's kind of like the Inception thing where you can see the city like on the bottom and the top, except it's like a landscape thing and
all kinds of different terrains.
It's kind of reminiscent of like an old Kong movie, like he has to fight different monsters like he would on Skull Island, so he kind of feels at home. There's like these giant flying cobra things that he fights, and
and he
beats him up,
beats the crap out of it, and rips its head off and eats it, kind of.
And
then he takes off
running, and
he flips to the opposite side, and then takes off running again.
And he finds
a throne room.
A throne room, which is where the power is hidden.
It contains his battle axe.
And when the power in the ground lights up, I mean, it's like in the shape of Godzilla. But he also finds the battle axe, which I think you're right. I think it's a dorsal fin broken off of Godzilla.
From
Yeah.
And it lights up and
attached to a bone.
Yeah. And meanwhile, I guess we should mention Madison and Brian
have arrived
in
Hong Kong. At Apex in Hong Kong, and they're walking around, and they end up in a arena of some sort, and lo and behold,
they're gonna do a test run on Mechagodzilla and have him fight a skull crawler, and he immediately takes care of it.
I mean, immediately.
But we see that the reason they need this power source is because he can only power up for like 40 seconds or something,
or to 40% of his power, which is not strong enough to.
And we have the character of Ren Serizawa, he was introduced early in the movie, but he's the one sitting in the skull of the Ghidorah.
Well, we don't find that out at this moment in time. The way it originally seems as though maybe he is piloting Mechagodzilla from the inside of Mechagodzilla.
Yeah.
And then in a later scene here in a few minutes, we see that he's actually sitting in the skull of King Ghidorah.
Yeah,
and it's like connected to the supercomputer.
Yeah, here's where my questions really kick in. First of all, so his name is Ren Serizawa. They clearly state that.
Is he related to Dr. Serizawa?
I mean, everything I read prior to the movie said it was going to be his son, but they never, I mean, unless I dismissed it, they never
mention that.
Mention his whatever his relationship is to.
Or is Serizawa just a very common Japanese name?
I mean, it's probably on the cutting room floor somewhere. I think, if you wanted to, again, we're not worried about human characters in this movie. If you wanted to try to like flesh out his character, maybe, have some kind of subplot where he blames Godzilla for his father's death, and so now he's determined to kill the Titans or something. I don't know.
Or something.
But
or maybe he had a falling out with his father, and so he is against everything he stood for, so now he is working against the Titans.
Yeah, but again, that's probably on the cutting room floor somewhere. I'm sure they had to have written it, otherwise why would this character even be here? But not concerned about it. But yeah, then the Ghidorah thing. Okay, so what?
I mean, it's kind of similar to in the way, like in what is it, Godzilla versus King Ghidorah in like the 90s or whatever, right? Where they turn Mecha or King Ghidorah into Mecha King Ghidorah.
Yeah,
I mean,
kind of.
That is the because then they turned around and used Mecha King Ghidorah to make that Mecha Godzilla.
Yeah.
And I think that is the reference, but their explanation. Ghidorah's 3 heads could communicate telepathically, so they're using that telepathic power for Serizawa to control Mechagodzilla remotely. But then, like, it's just a skull. Like, I didn't get the impression that the brain was still in there or anything, so all this power is just in these bones?
Question mark?
I don't know.
I mean, again.
Is this supposed to be the head that
Charles Dance
had, or is it a different head? Because why would Charles Dance, who was an eco-terrorist, who basically had the exact opposite goal of whatever these people have, sell them the head? But I don't know.
I think you're looking too deep.
This is not a movie for you to ask questions. Either you're enjoying the monsters beating the crap out of each other, or you're not enjoying
this movie. Yeah. But anyway.
Yeah.
What will we go back to? Anyway, Godzilla has now arrived in Hong Kong, and he is pissed.
He is,
and he's destroying some city, and he decides this giant power surge. He knows where it's coming from, and so he just. His atomic breath is just so great. He can literally drill to the center of the earth.
Yeah, I was like. What? I was like, if his atomic breath is that powerful, like he should incinerate every monster he comes in contact with. No problem.
The earth is hollow.
Yeah.
So he's just drilling past the crust.
There's like 30 miles of crust. Okay, whatever. So that happens. And
he's a big lizard.
He's a big lizard. So the Apex people that were on that Kong mission, like
they blow up.
They get the data from the power source. They send it to their headquarters. They get in their little ship.
Kong crushes it.
Kong catches it and crashes it. And then Skarsgård and Rebecca Hall and the little girl, they get on their ship.
They're heading back. Well, I guess they were able to get this information about this power source to them in time, and they have uploaded it to Mechagodzilla.
Well, the Apex people did.
Yeah, the Apex people.
Yeah, and so the other Rebecca Hall and Skarsgård, they and the little girl, they get in their ship and they use the hole Godzilla created, I guess, to get back to the surface, and Kong crawls up to the surface through it too.
And then, meanwhile, Madison and her group have been caught by the heads of Apex.
Yeah.
Mechagodzilla turns on and fries.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Godzilla and Kong have to have their big.
They gotta dig it out.
They gotta have. We have 2 rounds.
Round 2.
Back to back. So round 2, I guess, and they clearly state this in this movie. Round 2, round 3 is Kong now has his battle axe, as I'll call it,
and we get some fighting and some scrapping around. And then...
Now what I do love about this round is we're talking about Godzilla's breath. I mean, he still kicks Kong's ass, but there's a stretched out scene where he's just shooting his breath, and Kong's like running through the city trying to avoid it. And his atomic breath is just slicing down all these giant buildings in Hong Kong. And like Skarsgård is they're in their ship and they barely avoid it. I mean, it is a very impressive scene. But Kong, deflects it with his axe absorbs the atomic breath. And he brings the axe down on Godzilla's head.
The money shot from the trailer where he brings it down and smacks him.
Yeah.
Godzilla goes down.
For a little bit.
Round 2, and then Kong.
That's where Skarsgård literally says, I guess round 2 goes to Kong.
Yeah.
Sort of, because Kong was kind of thrown back through some buildings too, but he gets up first, I guess.
Technically won.
And then we cut away for a little bit. I guess this is probably when
Mechagodzilla turns on.
Yeah, and then turns on his masters.
And then takes out...
Well, Sarazawa gets fried in the chair, I guess.
Yeah, and then he takes out the head guy, and he's getting ready to break out.
Yeah, but first of all, we got to have round 3.
But then round 3, Godzilla gets back up. He's like, ooh.
He's like, I'm done with this. And he, again, just...
Round 3, fight!
Kick Kong's ass, and Godzilla, I mean, they promised a definitive winner.
And, I mean, he beats the crap out of Kong and gets him down the ground and literally steps on him. You can hear his bones cracking. And he roars in his face. And Kong's like, roar back.
And then Godzilla takes his foot off, and Kong just kind of lays there, defeated.
Winner, Godzilla.
TKO.
Yeah.
Or a KO.
But don't forget, bonus round.
So yeah, Godzilla is gonna walk away all victorious, but yeah, Mechagodzilla busts out of his containment facility, and it's Godzilla's turn to get his ass kicked. And Mechagodzilla, and this fight takes place during the daytime, and it is very impressive. Again, going back to that city destruction that I've been wanting, they destroy so many buildings. I mean, Mechagodzilla just tosses Godzilla through building after building, just beats the crap out of Godzilla.
Yeah. He's got all kinds of powers. He's got obviously he's got weapons on him, obviously, and then he's got some supercharged punch thing where he can power it up and deck Godzilla, and he's got his faux atomic breath thing, laser.
But they have a beam war.
Yeah.
They do have a beam war. They literally collide midair,
and Godzilla loses.
Godzilla loses. Yeah, Mechagodzilla just and it hits him right in the chest, and Godzilla's like, "Wow!"
Yeah, whoa.
He's like, "Who is this guy?" Meanwhile, Kong's dying.
Little Gia can feel Kong's heart slowing down, which of course is a reference to in all the classic Kong movies. King Kong's heart stops at one point, but Alexander Skarsgård gets the great idea.
Their little heave thing, vehicle. It's a drop line earlier that from one of the characters that died down in Hollow Earth, one of the ladies that got crushed in the other vehicle. Drop line that it can power the entirety of Las Vegas for a week or something like that. So he's like, that'll do it.
So he jumpstarts Kong's heart.
And Kong gets up and he's ready for action.
Ready. He sees Godzilla getting beat up, and Gia's like, "Oh no, Godzilla!" She signs, "Godzilla is not the enemy.
That's the enemy.
That's the enemy."
And he's
Kong's
like,
"Ooh, I guess whatever."
He's like, "No," and then she's like, "It's true." He's like, "Okay,
I guess so."
So then he goes to help him fight.
Then we have a tag team fight, and Godzilla and Kong do their best,
and they're getting it handed to him, and then Kong gets his battle axe, and he goes to town.
Yeah. And I have to admit,
Meanwhile,
I'm sorry.
Meanwhile, Josh and Madison, all them are like, okay, we gotta shut Mechagodzilla down. Guy with no hacking experience, Josh sits down. He's like, if I can figure out the password, I can shut him down. Well, obviously, he can't figure out the password, so he just
spills coffee on it.
He spills whiskey on it. Right as Mechagodzilla's tail is about to drill its tail right into Kong's face, and it kind of shuts him down.
And then Godzilla
powers up his axe.
Uses his atomic breath to power up Kong's axe, and then Kong
takes him out.
Chops up Mechagodzilla. I have to admit, I had actually seen the scene where Kong chops up Mechagodzilla because I guess it had been leaked online, and a couple of our loyal listeners sent it to our email inbox. Naughty listeners. So I knew that was coming, but it's still cool. Yeah. And so and
then he literally rips his head off and holds it up in the air like a trophy.
I guess
tosses it to the side.
The trade for Godzilla winning their fight was that Kong got the death blow on Mechagodzilla. I guess it's a fair trade.
Yeah.
And then Godzilla gets back up and they kind of have a stare down. But
they have a mutual respect for each other. So Kong literally buries the hatchet, just drops it into the ground.
Yeah,
and Godzilla's like,
"That's right." And he walks off.
Turns around and walks off and swims away. And Kong's like, ooh.
Yeah, and then, we get a kind of a funny scene where I guess Kyle Chandler shows up to Hong Kong to make sure his daughter's okay. And, he's shaking Bernie, that's Brian Tyree Hill's character's name's hand. And he's like, will you come on my podcast?
He's like, I want you to talk about blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. And then we really just... It ends pretty quick. We have a final scene where they've set up a new Monarch base in the Hollow Earth where Kong's at.
Kong's just essentially ruling his kingdom.
And cut to black, and the credits roll.
Not even digitized credits, like a lot of these movies have where, we get images or whatever. No, literally
Just
cut to
credits
black,
roll.
just credit crawl.
Yeah. And
Normally you get a lot of those, pre-credits.
Yeah.
And then you get the actual crawl.
Nope.
Straight to crawl.
Straight to crawl. And no post-credit scene.
No post-credit scene.
Which is interesting. I was actually surprised. There is not as much world building in this movie that I thought there would be. I thought for sure we would see a Mothra cocoon. I thought for sure that there would be other Titans besides.
It sounds to
the
me
ones that
like
are in
Legendary is probably like, okay, we'll just make this movie and let it stand alone for the most part.
Yeah.
If it makes enough money, we'll retroactively try to say, well, we set up this in that movie. I guess the most setup that there is for a future in this franchise is the whole Hollow Earth thing.
Yeah. I would be willing to bet that there were a lot of world building scenes filmed or at least scripted, and then when King of the Monsters came out and flopped,
they were like, ooh.
Or I'll say underperformed is probably a more accurate term. They probably, and then, when they had time to look at the movie, it's probably when they were doing all those reshoots.
And they were like, well,
re-editing. And
we don't really need to release another 2-hour plus long movie.
And they were, when they had that long break to reconsider everything, I bet they edited a lot of it down. Which, probably the right choice.
I think it works. I think that this film being the shortest film and being coming in at under 2 hours with credits is very helpful because the film's pretty well paced.
Yeah.
I mean, we get an action scene within the first 10 minutes to establish what we're doing here. Mm-hmm. We get another big action scene about
40 minutes in.
We get another small action scene kind of, I guess...
really,
I guess after that 40-minute mark, I mean, once we get to there's a break where things are happening, obviously, but then that entire third act is literally just nonstop monster action. So
I say from about the hour mark on, it's pretty much just full pedal to the metal. And I do have fun with this movie.
It's a lot of fun.
Oh yeah,
the human plot is.
It's bonkers and paper thin at the same time.
Yeah, it doesn't matter at all. But there's a lot of screen time for the monsters. And when the monsters are on screen, I'm having a lot of fun. And I said the same thing about...
I think this is the most characterized even Godzilla has been in these movies.
In these movies, yeah. I mean, obviously Godzilla's still lacking personality when compared to Kong.
Absolutely.
And I will say, if I were to say one thing that I wish this movie would have done more concerning the monsters, I wish Godzilla would have had a more even role as Kong, and they would have tried to humanize. I mean, still have him as the bad guy, but still give him more characterization than they do. I mean, there's one scene where he grins when he's beating up on Kong or something. But no, I think, like I said about King of the Monsters, I think when the monsters are on screen, I'm having fun, and I think that the monster action is an improvement over what we saw in King of the Monsters.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
I think that this movie is in general an improvement over that film.
I think the camera work.
I think this movie, a lot of it too, is that this movie is not as self-serious.
Yeah,
it knows what it is. This movie knows that it's here to be a giant, ludicrous blockbuster action film where a giant lizard and a giant monkey are gonna beat the crap out of each other at the end of it. Okay.
Yeah.
It knows that that's what it is, and it's not trying to be anything more than that.
Yeah, that's true. And I think a lot of it is held by. I mean, there's a lot of daytime. I mean, there's a lot of nighttime fights or underwater fights, but there's also a lot of daytime fights. I think the camera movement is much more kinetic than it was.
Oh, I love the way that this movie is filmed. I like the POV shots that you get of all kinds of things. I mean, there's a lot of POV shots of the actual
one of the
combat.
monsters
I mean,
fighting the other.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, I think Adam Wingard, in terms of just visually, I think he did a great
visually.
job.
This movie is really impressive. We can talk about it a little more in effects, though. I guess.
Yeah,
but I still think Skull Island has the. And I don't think its human plot is great, but I think it has the most tolerable human plot of all the films.
Yeah. But in the long run, I think what people are coming to these movies to see is the monsters.
Yeah.
And I'd say that the balance of human to monsters, in my opinion, probably works the best in this film.
Yeah, because it is
mostly monsters.
Yeah.
And I mean, each character does have their kind of little moments and little character traits.
They all have,
but none of them are deep. Everything's very face value.
They're all a stereotype, which at least I like the little Gia.
I like the whole subplot about her connecting with Kong, and I think that's probably the best human aspect in this film.
Yeah, I don't give two craps about Alexander Skarsgård or Rebecca Hall or
not really. I don't
Brown.
particularly care a whole lot what's going on with Millie Bobby Brown and her bunch.
I mean, I guess probably like the character you'll remember most walking away from this movie is probably Brian Tyree Henry because
he's the comedic relief.
He's the comedic relief, and he's like a crazy
conspiracy theorist,
which is kind
and
of
then after that,
nowadays.
I would definitely say the thing that you're going to remember most after that, as far as human
the
characters,
sign language thing.
going to be the plot with the little girl and King Kong's connection.
Poor Kyle Chandler is really good.
He's basically an overglorified cameo.
Yeah, he's a glorified cameo in this movie. That was kind of funny, but
anyway, yeah, I think it works, and it's a lot of fun.
It's fun. It is fun. I'll say that. You want to move on to creature design?
Creature design.
Well, we
what
always
are we going
start.
to talk about?
Well, the one who won the crown, obviously. Godzilla.
I mean, the king.
The king of the monsters. I wish they would have said the line, "What is a king to a god?" Like, if they'd have said that line, I would have gave this movie an A++. But no, Godzilla, basically the same that you've seen in the MonsterVerse movies.
He's essentially the same, He's looking a little more tattered, worse for wear. He's
looks a little
They've
more
changed
beat
his
up.
dorsal fins, I think, for the second time, for the second or third time.
They're more broken up.
Yeah. More like classic Godzilla dorsal fins. They've changed
his face a little bit.
Yeah.
His eyes some.
Well, yeah, now when he powers up his heat ray, like his eyes glow blue, and
blue.
everything. Like everything glows blue.
But I mean, even when it's not when he's not powering up or whatever, his eyes are much darker and more menacing than in previous films.
There
in this
are
franchise.
parts in that final battle where he is like crawling on all fours while he's fighting Kong. I'm like, I've never seen Godzilla pull that one. That's a new one, except for maybe that '98 movie.
I think they're just trying to show how raw and animalistic he is.
I guess, yeah. He uses his claws a lot to like claw up Kong's chest and stuff.
He's a savage in this movie. But I think he looks good.
He looks good. And then we
still
have
a chunky boy though.
We have the other titular monster, King Kong. Similar to what he looked like in Skull Island. He's
slightly bigger.
He's bigger.
He
looks
older.
He's
He
got
looks a
like
lot
a gray
older.
beard going on.
Gray beard.
Yeah. Looks kind of like an old man.
Yeah. I mean, I think the detail on his face is really impressive.
It's cool.
And they do a good
and
job.
And they've done a really good job, I would say, animating his emotions.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. He emotes really well. I think they do a great job.
I mean, for a
with
giant
that.
monkey, I mean, he feels like a human being.
Yeah. I think.
He knows how to speak.
He does speak.
Sign language.
He signs.
He signs. He doesn't speak words.
Yeah. He grunts
That's
a lot.
a form of speaking.
Yeah, sure. I think he looks good. He looks like King Kong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Next up,
Mechagodzilla.
next big one, Mechagodzilla.
Mechagodzilla. You know,
He's all right.
I'm going to say the
alright.
same thing that if we were to review Ready Player One, I would say about the one in that one. Kind of a generic robot dinosaur kind of feel I get from him. Obviously, a little more.
It's got
sticked
its
up.
like Godzilla's dorsal fins, like triple dorsal fins.
Yeah.
Two smaller little pegs on either side of one larger peg in the middle. He's kind of got the same head shape as our Godzilla in this universe.
He's got red glowing eyes. He's got these little pop out rocket launchers and like you say, he's got like rocket launchers I think in like his elbow and stuff when he uses his mega punch or whatever and
powers up his arm.
he's got a drill at the tip of his tail and
he looks all right.
he looks fine.
looks
I guess
alright.
He's a pretty generic mecha monster.
It's no original or Kiryu design, but it works, I guess.
It'll do.
We have the flying cobra things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're
look
winged
pretty-
serpents.
Yeah.
They're cool looking.
They look all right. There's the bats that are in the throne room thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which they're like turkey, like when
They're like turkey vultures.
turkey vulture bat things. I don't know.
They look alright.
Looks like a turkey vulture bat thing.
Yeah. There's a skull crawler.
There's a skull crawler.
one, which we'll talk about those a lot when we get to Skull Island, obviously.
They look like a skull crawler.
Yeah, it looks like a skull crawler.
There's a little vehicle thing. I guess we could talk about that.
The heave.
The heave.
Yeah.
Hollow Earth aerial vehicle or something
Yeah, I
like
think
that.
that's what it stands for.
I think so.
Reminded me, we couldn't figure out the name. Like what is it in the Heisei area? Heisei era or the Millennium era?
It's the Millennium Era. Godzilla against Mechagodzilla.
Yeah, where Mechagodzilla has like these little flying car vehicle things that like attached to him.
Yeah. Yeah, it
Reminds
kind
me
of
of
looks like though. Kind of looks like kind of anything you'd see from like Halo or Avengers or something. Those type of vehicle.
Little hovering vehicle thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's about it.
I think that's about it. What else?
Monster design works.
I like it. It works.
Effects.
First
and foremost, this movie's really pretty.
Oh yeah.
It looks really good. Now I do get a little tired of the very obvious red and blue color filters, depending on which monster storyline we're following at the time. But
Yeah.
but
But like,
overall,
I really, I mean, like the neon
Yeah.
and everything is really pretty to look at. I think
Yeah.
it works. It's the colors are very saturated in this film, and I think it looks really pretty.
just like King of the Monsters, I mean, you could freeze frame any scene pretty much with the monster in it, and it would make a great poster.
Pretty much.
And I mean, this movie looks gorgeous. The CGI for the most part is really good. It looks a
Pretty good.
little cartoonish at times.
Sometimes
thought.
I think like the scene where Godzilla attacks the ships and the aftermath where he's like looking up through the fire looks a little glossy to me.
I thought the one scene that I was like, ew, was the Beam Wars scene. I thought it looked really CGI-y.
I can buy that.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it looks good.
I mean, it's what you would expect out of
Yeah.
a movie of this budget. The
Yeah.
CGI is
pretty
much
good.
top notch.
Yeah. Now, like I said, I think scale is it's a bit hit and miss.
Yeah.
And gravity, just like, I don't know, the way gravity and stuff works.
Yeah.
Kong and
Yeah.
Godzilla look good though.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
they're a little OP.
I mean,
Godzilla's a little OP.
Godzilla,
Yeah.
Megagodzilla is way OP.
Oh yeah.
Godzilla's very OP, especially once he gets powered up by this power source.
But Kong looks very realistic.
But like I said, I think
Kong looks like a
the
giant
detail,
monkey.
Yeah.
the detail on Kong is really
It's
impressive.
fantastic.
And Godzilla, there's some close-ups of Godzilla where the detail is pretty impressive
Pretty
too.
good.
There's a lot of saliva, which you don't usually see with Godzilla, but
It's
whatever.
kind of weird. He also goes on all fours.
Yeah, the scene again where he crawls on all fours. That was a little odd. But
The teeth their mouths look real too. Like when
Yeah.
we get close-ups of their
Yeah.
mouth, I mean, there's multiple scenes where they're literally roaring at each other.
yeah,
Works. I think it
Yeah.
all works.
Yeah.
it works. I think it works. I think the effects,
The effects are pretty good.
Yeah,
And the score.
the score
By one Tom Holkenborg, it seems like he is definitely
Yeah.
trying to get away from that Junkie XL moniker.
I think
Yeah.
so. So here is my thoughts on the score. I think that the Kong theme is passable.
Mm-hmm.
I think that everything else is very generic and very lackluster. The Godzilla thing, like we've already talked about, is just like the
It literally
copyright-free
sounds like they
version
took
of the Fukube theme.
original Fukube theme and just, well, let's take that note and move it over here, and take this one and move it over there, and then
remove these notes.
We're gonna have to pay the royalty fee for it.
yeah. So yeah, it just feels.
I mean,
like
it's
a
very
rip-off.
loud. I mean,
It's loud and bombastic. It's what you've come to expect from a Tom Holkenborg score, I would assume at this point. It's not as
very generic blockbuster to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
I don't think it's anything like his Mad Max score.
Yeah.
It's different from that, but like everything that he's done since Mad Max,
Yeah.
very much similar.
Yeah. Definitely.
Very just loud and drums, synth heavy.
Yeah, electric guitar.
A lot of just loud.
It works.
But it works. It's generic, but it's
generic. It
fine. Works.
I mean, it doesn't like take me out of the movie, so
No.
I guess there's that. Yeah.
If we're being honest, it's not super in your face. And except for when it's the Godzilla or the Kong theme.
Yeah.
And then
always.
the music playing over the final battle with Mechagodzilla.
There
That's
are-
where the music stands out the most to me.
There are a couple of song choices
You're like, huh?
that like
When they-
I don't know about that.
when they that song they play when Kong's there.
Yeah, well, the first like the opening song, I was like, I don't know what this is, but whatever.
But anyway,
Anyway,
we're ready to talk about some final thoughts.
I want to do final thoughts.
Andrew.
Well,
go for it.
you know, this movie, it's all right. It's pretty good. You know.
Yeah.
It's probably one of the better MonsterVerse movies so far.
And there's only four.
There's only four of them, so
Yeah.
That's
it's either in the
true.
top half or the bottom half.
Yeah.
Take your pick.
I mean, the characters are not good. It's like in Skull Island. Those are probably the best written characters out of the whole MonsterVerse.
I don't know if they're the best written. I just like those character actors more.
Well, there's only Godzilla and King of the Monsters left to
Okay, anyway.
pick from.
Yeah.
You know, effects pretty good. I like the effects. They make Godzilla and King Kong look really realistic and very detailed. And fight scenes look great. The city destruction, I like it. They have a lot more in this than previous movies. And you know, score, it fits. It's alright. Song choices sometimes a little weird, but it's alright. I'm gonna give this movie a B+.
A B+. What do you think, Dylan?
I think this movie is very entertaining.
Yeah.
From start to finish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's not just one specific moment in this film that I was like, wow, I'm bored out of my mind.
Yeah.
There were multiple points in Godzilla where I'm like, well, it was very slow. I don't care what's going on.
Yeah.
Multiple points in King of the Monsters that I was like, I don't really care.
Yeah.
This movie, I don't really have much to care about.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot of characters you just be like, oh, I'm invested in these characters. They're just here to drive the plot forward.
Yeah.
And this movie knows that.
Yeah.
Like I said, the characters are very face value, kind of one note. But I think they worked for this movie. They served their purpose to get us to our next big monkey, big lizard fight scene. And that's what's important.
Yeah.
And I think that once we get to those scenes, this movie is really, really, really fun.
Mm-hmm.
I think the action sequences, the way that they're shot and filmed and framed is fantastic. It's much more puts you in the mix than previous films. All the POV shots are really cool. Like literally, like you are the monster fighting the other monster, which is really, really cool to see. I think Adam Wingard did a fantastic job of deciding to taking that creative choice of trying to film it this way. I think the monsters look good. I mean the effects in this movie are pretty great. Kong is especially fantastic. They've done a fantastic job of the detail in his face and having him emote and all that. I think this movie looks really pretty. I love the color choices. The filters when you have different the King Kong or Godzilla scenes, they're obviously there, but I think that it still looks really, really pretty. I think that this movie, the cinematography is fantastic, and then the score is here. Mm-hmm. It's here, but I don't think that this movie. What am I trying to say? I think that this movie accomplishes what it set out to do, and that's just be a big CGI blockbuster action fest of two legendary monsters coming together and duking it out on screen, and it knows that, and that's what this movie set out to be, and that's what it accomplished, and I think that it's incredibly fun, and I'm going to give it an A-.
Really? Yeah, so I agree with essentially what you guys are saying. Yep, the human plot, once again, is not good, but unlike the other entries in this MonsterVerse, they know it's not good, and it is very much the B plot. The A plot is the giant monsters beating the crap out of each other. And again, I think in terms of monster action, this is the best out of the MonsterVerse. I think the monster action is a ton of fun. Like you said, I think Adam Wingard is very creative with how he films it, and I think just really kinetic camera movement, and it really puts you right in the middle of that fight, and I think it's great. Effects are great for the most part. I love the way they've characterized Kong in this movie. They pick the right winner. Godzilla wins. Godzilla, like I said, kicks Kong's ass for 90%.
The majority of this movie.
For 90% of this movie, which is the right choice because I'm a Godzilla fan through and
it just logically makes sense.
Yeah.
If you're talking about logic in an unlogical movie.
Am I a little disappointed about how Godzilla turns around and gets his ass kicked by Mechagodzilla? Maybe they overdo it a little bit. But, I think, they couldn't have a movie where, especially since Kong is their more viable long-term franchise IP, they couldn't have a movie where Kong just gets his butt kicked and that was it. So, in turn, they let Kong get the final killing shot on Mechagodzilla, which is fine. Mechagodzilla is a bit of a letdown. Like I said, kind of a generic design.
Definitely.
It's a bonkers idea that he's even in this movie, but then again, is it ever not a bonkers idea when Mechagodzilla shows up? I love the classic Showa era movies that have bonkers plots, and I think part of the problem with the other MonsterVerse movies is that they were too self-serious, and this one does away with that. They're like, we're just going all the way. This Hollow Earth thing, the fact that we're gonna build a Mechagodzilla, we're just going balls to the wall. Full Showa era madness. And you know what? I think they do a pretty good job of it. Is it a perfect movie?
No.
By no means. I do wish that I had one or two human characters that I could latch onto and be like, oh, I really care what happens to them in this movie. And I don't. I do wish they did a bit of a better job of characterizing Godzilla and giving him
that would be nice.
A bit of a character trait, some more character traits other than just he's the big bad lizard that's gonna, kick Kong's ass. But all that being said, I did have fun watching this movie. It wasn't as near as bad as I thought it was going to be. Like I said, it delivered on the one thing that I thought that the MonsterVerse was really lacking in, which was city destruction. It delivered that in plenty. It was a lot of fun. They wreck a lot of buildings in this movie, and
Absolutely.
so I'll give them a 2 thumbs up for that, definitely. I think, obviously, we're going to watch this several more times. My opinion will probably evolve as it usually does when we watch movies like these. But I've been trying to settle on a grade, and I think I'm going to settle on a B+. I'm not going to say it's the best film in the MonsterVerse. I still think that the best all-around film in the MonsterVerse is the one we haven't reviewed yet. Of course, we'll revisit it.
I think that's a fair assessment. That the best all around from every aspect of the film is the one that we haven't reviewed yet, Kong Skull Island.
Yeah.
But if you had to sit me in a room and tell me you have to pick one of these 4 movies to watch on repeat, I'd rather watch this one.
Yeah. It really helps this movie that it's under 2 hours.
Being under 2 hours really helps this movie because it's fast-paced, it's quick, it gets you through
Not a lot of world building that's unnecessary. Not a lot of human boohoo cry scenes that are unnecessary. They don't even try with the human. Like, that last time, all the stuff with the family and all the blah, blah, blah. I was like, I just don't care at all. Let's get back to Godzilla and Mothra and Rodan and Ghidorah just beating the crap out of each other, please.
Absolutely. But like I said, if you had to tell me that I had to pick one, I would pick this one. I think this is the most fun that I've had watching one of these legendary MonsterVerse movies, and it's the one that I would probably come back to the most.
I think I need to see it a couple more times before I say that definitively, but I think I agree that I definitely see where you're coming from, but yeah, B+. That's where I'm gonna settle on.
Anyway, we've got a slight bit of news, it seems, kind of.
Yeah, do we want to talk about the future of the MonsterVerse first?
Yeah, we can. Sure. Let's do that.
So
and then we'll talk about news. Sorry.
Yeah. So obviously we talked about the box office at the beginning of the show, which I think everything considered, this can only be considered a really good success financially.
I mean, I would say this movie, as we stated, is projected to open somewhere between, they're saying, $20 and $30 million domestically.
Yeah, from today through the end of the weekend.
Which is, obviously, that's a 5-day opening weekend, which is not normal, but Warner Brothers likes to present their numbers in that way, especially since the pandemic has happened.
Yeah.
But even if you compare that to the 5-day opening of Tenet, Tenet's 5-day opening, if you count what they reported as their initial 5-day opening, was only $20 million.
Yeah. What was Wonder Woman 84?
Wonder Woman, they only counted as a 3-day opening weekend because it came out on a Friday.
Yeah.
I think was
like 16,
15 or 16, like right about 16 million.
Yeah.
So even if you count this as a 5-day total, if it pushes $30 million, that's still the best box office opening we've seen since the pandemic has started. Even if it doesn't hit that, the fact that it has already grossed almost as much money internationally as King of the Monsters did in its opening weekend in half the markets
countries,
is an impressive feat.
Yeah, that is really impressive. In fact, we were talking about this earlier. I think in some roundabout way, maybe COVID saved the MonsterVerse.
Maybe.
And
because honestly, if we're being honest, had COVID never happened and this movie would have come out last year when it was set to come out in the middle of the blockbuster season or toward the beginning, middle of the blockbuster season, this movie would have just been a drop in the water of that summer blockbuster season.
I think it also helps if you look at the 2 blockbusters that have been released post-COVID before this.
Tenet and Wonder Woman.
Tenet was not a mass consumable product. I don't know.
No, it was much more
high
cerebral
thing. I hated the movie, frankly. Hate's a strong word. I strongly disliked the movie, frankly.
And then Wonder Woman
84.
It is what it is.
It's a bad movie. So the fact that this movie is popcorn blockbuster entertainment, and
I think that. Sorry, go ahead.
It's under 2 hours. What was Wonder Woman 84? Like 2.5 hours?
Almost 2.5 hours.
Complete BS.
And then, obviously, Tenet was 2.5 hours.
Yeah. And it's just fun blockbuster entertainment. That's all it is.
I think if I were the general audience of America, if I am in an area that has an open movie theater, which is the majority of the country now, at least in some limited capacity, that if I were looking at, say, all 3 of those movies were to have come out at the same time, if I'm looking at all 3 of those movies, as much as I love Christopher Nolan, and as much as I like superhero movies, if I were to sit down and be like, which one of those movies would I rather go sit and watch and spend my money on, it would be this one.
I think now that we've seen all 3 of them. Now, if I were just looking at this and had not seen all 3 of them,
you probably would have picked something like
I would have probably picked Tenet.
But having seen all 3 of them, yes, I would say that Even if I hadn't seen all three of them, I think just more general audiences, just like the general public, if they were to have a broad look at this, they would have either picked Wonder Woman or this film over Tenet. But honestly, I think they'd be like, ooh, under 2 hours, just a quick matinee on a Friday or on a Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon, under 2 hours, big monkey's going to bite big lizard, and it's going to be a fun time. Yeah. I think that's what general audiences are thinking, and I hope that it shows this weekend.
And I said if I were going in blind, I'd pick Tenet. I meant a general audience movie would probably pick Tenet. I would always pick Godzilla, even if I thought the movie was going to be utter crap.
I like Christopher Nolan, but I honestly do think that the average moviegoer, someone who doesn't go see as many movies as we do, I mean, in a normal year, obviously. I mean, in a normal year, we'd go see 70, 80 movies a year.
2 or 3 movies a week,
yeah. Especially given the circumstances, I would think that your average moviegoer that probably has not seen, maybe not even seen a movie this year, maybe not even seen a movie since last February.
Since Sonic.
They're probably looking at this and like, that looks really fun.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Kids will enjoy it.
If not, they're going to sit at home and watch it on HBO Max, which is fine.
Well, I can guarantee you that kids will enjoy this way more than they would Wonder Woman 84 or Tenet.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
Those are...
For kids, those are snooze faces.
Yeah.
Especially Tenet. Tenet's a snooze fest for kids.
For adults, too. Give you a migraine if you stay awake.
Like, hold on, don't understand. But anyway, as far as the future of the Legendary MonsterVerse, I think if this movie, I did read somewhere where they're projecting a final international box office gross of somewhere between 300 and 350.
Yeah.
If this opening weekend domestically is an accurate guess, I would say probably by the end of its, because it goes day and date, 31 days theatrical HBO Max, and then a 30-day exclusive theatrical window. And it's, quote unquote, let's just say 60-day theatrical run. If it can gross $100 million, I say that's a win. By the time you count HBO Max and home video sales, you probably broke even.
I think that, assuming we don't have a big spike in COVID, I think that this has a chance to have some really long legs because it doesn't have any competition.
Not until June.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a couple things coming out between now. I mean, Mortal Kombat comes out. I mean, that's maybe its next really big competition, but I just saw they pushed that back a week to April 23rd from April 16th. Black Widow got pushed back from May. So now that the next, I mean, you have, what do you got at the end of May? We got Cruella and A Quiet Place 2 opening at the end of May.
Well, spoiler alert, nobody wants to see Cruella.
And then in June, mid-June-ish, late June-ish, you got Fast 9.
Yeah.
Early July, you got Black Widow.
Yeah. So
I think point being, there's not a whole lot of major competition for this movie to be competing with between now and the foreseeable future.
And like we said at the beginning, I think the actual price tag of this movie is probably closer to $500 million. But I think they'll probably get about break even. The question will be, which we already know that the MonsterVerse will continue in some fashion with that Skull Island anime.
Yeah.
But the question, will there be another feature film? I think it depends, one, how they judge the HBO Max success.
Absolutely.
How much they weigh the fact that COVID, they're releasing this in this COVID time period. If they give this movie some bonus points because it's doing pretty well during a COVID time period, whether they continue on with it.
But here's the thing. Also, the contract on this Toho licensing expires after this film.
Yeah, they had.
And
they had to re-sign it.
There's no feature film projects even in development at this moment in time after the end of this film.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
They'll have to re-up the contract. Now, Kong will continue.
Kong will continue, but that's a Warner Brothers property. Yeah. But will the Legendary MonsterVerse, including
Godzilla,
the Toho characters, continue in this fashion? We will see Kong in some capacity from Warner Brothers, I would assume, in the next
2 years.
Excluding that anime,
yeah,
probably in the next 2 to 3 years. 5 years max.
Yeah, I agree. It depends on how eager Toho. Now, Toho, first and foremost, is about the money. So if they think this movie does pretty good, then they will.
And they think they can make some more money with Warner Brothers and Legendary.
They will re-up the agreement, and we'll continue on from there. If Toho, for some reason, doesn't see a future in the MonsterVerse,
then by the end of 2022, you'll have a Godzilla film.
Yeah. Which I also wonder, because, they signed that first deal prior to Shin Godzilla. And Shin Godzilla, when it came out, made a crap ton of money in Japan and won all the major awards. I wonder if they're going to be looking at that and be thinking, either when we sign the deal, we need to reword it so that we can release a film whenever we want as well, or if we're just going to take the rights back for ourselves. I don't know. That might play a role in the decision too. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Co-licensing, if you will. I guess.
Co-licensing,
we'll let you make your version.
Yeah.
But we also want to make ours.
Yeah.
And we can agree to not release them at the same time.
Yeah, we'll release them every other year or something.
Something like that.
Which I would love. Godzilla movie every year. Let's go for it.
Release them at Christmas time. It'll be Aaron's Christmas tradition.
Yeah, here we go. So yeah, just a bit of brief news. Something I did forget to put down that I will mention briefly. They have indefinitely pushed back Shin Ultraman's release date. So I don't know. I think they might have said something about targeting next year. It would just had too many COVID delays. They couldn't get it out on time. So, sad face. And they've officially, I think, released a poster for Season 2 of Pacific Rim: The Black.
Yeah,
so.
It's officially coming.
It's officially coming.
Yeah.
But the thing that I did remember to write down, there are 3 new mobile apps, Godzilla games, coming. One of them was already here, Run Godzilla, which I downloaded. It's kind of dumb, don't worry. The other 2 are Godzilla Battle Line and Godzilla Destruction. I don't know the release dates on those, but coming pretty soon. So if you like little mobile phone games, there you go.
Check them out.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's pretty much all I have to talk about on this movie.
Yeah, that's right.
Next week, we are going to officially start the Kong franchise with King Kong 1933.
Yep. Yeah. Which I will say is, I mean, in all seriousness,
the OG giant monster film.
Really, the OG giant monster movie, and one of the handful of movies that can say that they changed the shape of cinema. So even if you're not a big monster fan in general, I definitely, which if you aren't, you wouldn't be listening to this, but King Kong is the original King Kong. If you can tolerate old classic cinema at all, definitely worth watching.
Absolutely.
And we will.
And I'm not a huge fan of super old movies, and I like that movie.
Yeah. So,
spoiler alert.
Yeah, definitely check that out and join us next week when we talk about it. Other than that,
yeah, if you can't wait till next week, probably not even really next week. I believe this episode we're going to try to get out by this Friday, which would be the 2nd. Mm-hmm. I would assume by next Tuesday we will release that episode. But if you can't wait till then, we have another podcast called Movies Don't Create Psychos. We will have, by that point in time, probably same day that this episode comes out, have published an episode over the first Saw movie. And we're going to have to look at the schedule here in a second because they actually pushed that movie up a week.
Spiral?
Yeah, to the 14th.
Well, I was just going to have to wait a week because we can't move the schedule.
No, we can't really move the schedule. But anyway, so we're going to review the Saw franchise, get through Spiral, and then we will continue with the Conjuring franchise, which we had previously started talking about. So, yeah, if you want to hear us talk about horror movies, we are talking about Saw right now. Go check it out.
That's right. But other than that, if you want to contact us concerning this podcast, you can always contact us at stompthisway1954@gmail.com. And I always read your emails, so send them on.
Yeah, he does. And then he shares them with me occasionally.
Yeah.
Other than that, if you want to follow us on our social medias, we are up on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We're at Stomp This Way on all those platforms. Make sure you give us a like or a follow, and be sure to tell your friends about us.
That's right. We also have a lovely website. Andrew, why don't you tell them about the website?
Well, you can find it at www.stomthisway.podbean.com.
That's right. Dylan, do we have anything of interest over there?
Probably, maybe. Over there we have our full schedule of events, obviously subject to change as always, as well as grade for previous films on that schedule. You can also find backlogged episodes and whatever news Aaron wants to keep us updated with.
That's right.
Oh, and you can also, depending on where Aaron puts us in his ranking, you can see his new updated Godzilla ranking sometime in the near future, and possibly a ranking of all 12 camera films.
I already published the ranking of all 12. In fact, I just took the page that I published the Godzilla rankings on, and I renamed it Franchise Film Rankings, and I'm going to have like all my different
there you go
rankings on that one page. So check that out. And yes, pretty soon I will sit down, I will take a hard look at that Godzilla film rankings, and I will determine where this film belongs. So
gun to your head, close to about. Where would you put it? Upper half.
It'll be the upper half. It'll be. I don't think it's a top 10er, but it'll be in the upper half. So yeah, check that out. But I think that's all we got for you this week.
Yep.
Kong next week. We'll return to Gilala for his parody film the week after, and then we'll go on with a bunch of 8 movies. So check us out in the coming weeks. But as always, I'm Aaron.
I'm Andrew.
And I'm Dylan, and we'll catch you in the next one.